Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm Mike, and of course, this is My Minutes. And I think the big reveal on this episode is it's not typical from what I've been doing, and I'm pretty sure the backdrop gave that away. It is, in fact, going to be a movie review. Well, kind of a movie review. It's definitely going to be my take on the movie. Let's put it that way. Of the last and allegedly final volume in the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And I will say, before I go any further, that I think it was a fitting end, allegedly, to the series. James Gunn really did a good job. So now let's get into it. Running time of 2.5 hours. Moved really quickly. There was a lot of action. So if you don't like action, probably don't want to get into it. CGI was absolutely amazing. And I went to school for computer animation, and the things they were doing just, it was remarkable, blows me away. Thought it was fantastic. Storyline, the plot did jump around quite a bit. Uh, Before I go any further, please, there are some very mild spoilers. Probably nothing more than you could figure out from the trailer. I'm trying to keep it um, as limited as possible, just because I don't know if anyone still who's watching this hasn't seen it and still has the intention to. So, if you don't want to know anything else more about the movie and might potentially ruin something for you, please tune in after this and then give me an honest critique. And now that I've given the warning, uh, back to my review of this. Like I said, 2.5 hour running time. James Gunn, this was his third project, his baby. In fact, his last project with Marvel. He's now over helming the DC cinematic universe. So we'll see what kind of things he does with that. Hopefully, he can produce as good a quality as what he did here. But from my understanding, he's going to be more of an executive over there and not so much hands on with the different movies. But enough about that. Had a PG-13 rating, which honestly, I thought they pushed the envelope on that. It could have honestly had a slightly higher rating. The only reason I say that is because there was a lot of profanity, especially for this series of movies. That was one evolution in this trilogy I didn't care for. And I'm coming from the point of view of I am a Christian, and my belief structure, there's a lot more creative ways to get your frustration out than to have to just blatantly um, swear and throw around profanity and vulgarity like that. In fact, their way they addressed it in the first movie was more clever and um, I don't want to say artistic. That would definitely not be the right word, but it was definitely more clever and creative. Probably a better word, I would say. Second movie, a little bit more liberal with the cursing, but this movie, they just seemed to be one of the things they were checking off a box. Let's see how much we can fit in there without having to change the rating. So be forewarned. Um, it was a little bit of a darker movie. And if you've seen the trailer, you could probably figure that out. It was more of a story revolving around this little fellow here, Rocket Raccoon. It was a very fitting story for him, filled in a lot of the gaps and a lot of the questions people have asked over the years. Um, Specifically, why is he a talking raccoon? What's his backstory? How did he get this way? How does he have cybernetic implants? And just a whole lot of questions as to how is this animal talking? I mean, regardless about the talking tree over here, Groot, which was voiced by Vin Diesel too, and he has the probably simplest lines of anyone to memorize. It is quite literally always "I am Groot." So anyone watching this would already know that. Uh, there's a surprise in there for you too if you do watch that movie, and I won't get into that. The character development for all these characters, and there are some more characters that are more main. I just took this image from the first movie because I thought it was more fitting. You got to see them directly and for what they are. They didn't change a whole lot there, but um, how they come together as a team, each one in their own lives, how the interactions, the love dynamic between these two, which I'll get into in just a second. They rounded out these characters really well, I thought. The writing really was well done. And for a darker movie, it had a lot of humor in it, which was needed because if they had left a lot of that humor out, it would have been a harder movie to watch. I mean, one of the opening scenes starts with alcoholism. So, you couple that with the major theme of animal testing and animal abuse, let alone some small implied um, child abuse that you don't see, but it is definitely implied that it's in there. It's a much darker movie, especially for this series, let alone a Marvel movie. Now, having said that, I will say one of the things I did truly appreciate about this movie, aside from the fact that it was watchable, unlike a lot of the movies that Marvel's put out in the last few years, once again, my opinion, is that it didn't have all the political hints and innuendos and the propaganda. And if there was any in there, it was so subtle I didn't even catch it. And I've seen this movie twice already just to make sure I got everything, because it does jump around a lot with a lot of flashbacks explaining his life and the tragedy that surrounded him, not only in the past but what is currently going on in the movie as it progresses towards its end. So yeah, the humor was much needed, well placed, and there was a lot of it. You couple that with the visual aesthetics of the movie, it really was good. And I discussed this with my moderator slash wife. I don't have an actual rating system per se, nothing like clever or anything like, 3 microphones or 5 microphones. That would just sound weird, but I would give it an overall a B minus. I thought it was really well. The first one by far still stole the show, and because a lot of people didn't know what to expect because this was such an obscure comic book that they pulled it from to make this series, but what they've done with it has been truly phenomenal. 3 of these major movies, a holiday special, which was and cameos in the last 2 Avengers movies, and did a lot of good. But I did say I would touch on very briefly the dynamic between these two. This is the main character, Peter Quill, and I can't even say main character anymore because now they all have so much more screen time equally shared that it really did start off revolving just around Chris Pratt's character here, Star-Lord or Peter Quill, and the love that he had and the affection that was growing towards Zoe Saldana's character, Gamora here. And to make a very long story short, if you know anything about the Avengers movies, even if you haven't seen them, I'm sure you've heard the word Avengers. It's very common now because of how big the movies were. She ended up dying at one point, and through a lot of scripting and a lot of movie magic, they resurrected her. They actually did it a clever way. I'll give them credit for that. But this movie explored the dynamic between those two, because when she came back, she didn't have the memories and the feelings towards him that she had developed in the first 2 movies. So it was interesting to see how that played out in this third movie. And I thought the way they ended it with the 2 of them wasn't cheesy, it wasn't forced, actually worked really well. And I think that helped make the movie successful too. Like I said, this is allegedly the 3rd movie. We'll see if Marvel holds true to that. Hopefully they don't try for a 4th, because I have a hunch it would overshadow it, the previous 3, and just it would leave a bad taste in your mouth and probably ruin it. But anyone who's seen the first 2 movies know that at the end, if you watch through all the credits, there's a couple more scenes, and this one stayed true to that too. In the very, 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 very last scene, I believe it was the 3rd scene in, it does say that instead of saying the Guardians of the Galaxy will return, it just said that Star-Lord will return. So we'll see what his future holds. And I know that probably gave away a little too much, but like I said, there were some emotional spots in this movie, well-deserved emotional spots. Thought it was a really good film, though. So I would recommend seeing it if you have any intentions, or if you watch this in spite of my warnings and you decide that maybe you should see it. I would suggest seeing the first 2. But even as a film by itself, standalone, yeah, you'd have questions a little bit, but as a standalone film, I think it works really well. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you very much for joining me tonight or today or this morning, whenever you're choosing to watch it. I'm just glad that you chose to watch it. And I will say, have a great day. We'll see you soon.